What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TOJ Talks. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at Will Pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all 32 Pod, TOJ Pod, the whole 9 yards. Everyone knows the deal there. Happy Saturday here. Obviously, a Jets bye week. And, normally on a Jets bye week, not much to talk about. This team's 3-8, struggling. Everyone kind of knows the deal, right? And not that I thought it'd be a quieter week. I thought we might get something. There's just the way the season's been going. Was it, an IR stint? Is it a surprise cut? A surprise couple articles coming out, and we kind of got everything, and obviously and more, and all over the feed. Obviously, myself, Joe, Connor, Paul, Meeks, Dan, everyone hit on Joe Douglas being fired earlier in the week. Since then, the Woody Johnson article, kind of detailing a little bit of the dysfunction from Zach Rosenblatt and Diana Rossini. We got another article today talking about Aaron Rodgers, which we'll get into in a moment here. I want to kind of come on here and talk a little bit about where the Jets are at with the season. And I might release an episode tomorrow. Obviously there's no game tomorrow for the Jets, and just talk a little bit about what's gone right, what's gone wrong this year, and kind of looking forward to these last 6 games. And I'll do a majority of that tomorrow. This episode's going to be mainly around kind of the news of the last few days, just because I feel like it needs to be hit on. I'll start with the Aaron Rodgers thing today, and then I'll move to the Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh of it all, because I had to be honest, I've had enough of kind of some of the stuff that's come out, and it's not anyone's fault. The reporting's been fantastic, and Diana and Zach and other folks who've done some really good reporting. They've done an amazing job. There's nothing to do with them. Diana Rossini had an article out today in The Athletic. You obviously can go check it out, talking a little bit about where the Jets go here in 2025, some potential head coach, with head coach, with general manager, and also about Aaron Rodgers. And, I would say 10 days or so ago, me and Joe came on here and we debated a little bit of, hey, what do you do before the Colts team? What do you do next year at quarterback? And I was of the opinion that the best thing for the franchise moving forward would be they'd win enough games in a weak quarterback class that they wouldn't be able to acquire through the draft an elite talent. And in doing so, the best way to make themselves with a very competitive roster, if they could get the right head coach and the right general manager in here, run it back with A-Rod one more year, take a draft pick either in round 1 or round 2, and you'll have the cap space in 26 to eat more of that dead money. And Rodgers has been really hurt this year, and hey, maybe with the right head coach and all these things, it could be kind of frisky in 2025 with kind of little expectation. And then 26, hopefully, Garrett's extended at that point, and Brees and these other guys and Sauce, and the team's kind of rolling them back in the right, and the culture's set, and they're moving forward, and get a quarterback on a rookie contract that just sat a year. Like that to me sounded like a really nice plan. And that not that this plan can theoretically happen with I don't Darnold's not coming back, but the Darnold, Russell Wilson, that type of situation, which we've seen around the league, like it doesn't, not those guys, but that situation, yeah, sure, that could still happen, even if it is a Tyrod Taylor. Although I like Tyrod a lot, and I think he could be a nice mentor. I just worry if you're going to draft a high upside quarterback with a guy who's the most injury prone quarterback potentially in the league. It's a little bit, I'm not sure that's the best strategy, but again, it is certainly an option. And it might be their best option, Travis, a rookie, and Taylor next year. I have no idea. And that's not really worth really debating right now. Rodgers has basically said, per her sources, that talking to people, that 2 things are likely to happen. One, a Rodgers IR stint, potentially benching or being cut, or any of the 3 could happen, at some point this year. I think likely you're going to get I don't even want to call it a phantom IR stint, because I think, Tyron Smith was hurt. He was also playing like shit. So, and you have Olu in the wings, like it kind of matched up perfectly. I do think from a Rodgers point of view, clearly pulled his hamstring, if not worse, in that Broncos game. I mean, look at how mobile this guy was in week 3 and the beginning of week 4. That first half and against the Broncos, I know that game didn't go well. We all know that kind of basically ended their season. But just go back and watch. And Rodgers, I think he had 26 yards on 5 carries in the first half of that football game after moving fantastic the week prior against New England and looking like prime Rodgers, and then pulls the hamstring. He gets sacked. The one that was not called a fumble, that pretty clearly was a fumble. Rodgers got up really slow. It seemed like he got the knee banged up pretty bad. We don't really know what's been going on there. And Minnesota gets bent in half, hurts the ankle, and he hasn't been the same really ever since. He had some moments against Houston, but other than that, he has moments every game, one or two throws or 4 or 5, a couple drives, whatever. But generally, he has not been the same player. He's looked compromised in the pocket and doesn't really want to get hit, obviously, as we know. And I don't blame him for not wanting to get hit. It's just he's clearly hurt. And maybe the Jets look at it as their best interest to get Tyrod out there, let him throw a bunch of balls to Garrett Wilson, Devontae, Conk, Brees, and just go, man. And just say, like, F it. Like, we're just going to who cares the next 6 weeks in a sense? Like, I don't know. And the Jets rattle off 3 out of 6, 4 out of 6. And, like, yeah, people are going to be like, oh, man, we want to tank for a pick. But I don't know. Did it get Garrett to a point where he's, like, feeling really good going into an offseason where he gets an extension? I don't know. I prioritize right now, at least from my opinion, for the Jets of, like, how do you keep your young star and your young core happy enough that they want to be here long term for this next head coach and this next GM? And if they can do both and somehow they get a good pick and Tyrod makes these guys look good, or Rodgers, I don't know, whatever it is. But I do think we're trending towards, as Diane ever alluded to, Joe has alluded to this a bunch. You do feel like potentially coming out of the bye is Rodgers. The hamstring is just, it's too much. And to be honest with you, like, it is compromising him all. Like, there's no doubt about that. Rodgers always been a warrior. He's always played through injuries. It's just right now it's obviously it's a struggle, and it's crazy to say all this coming off as a game where, as bad as he looked in the first half, like, they did end up putting up 28 points or whatever. It's like crazy to think they lost the football game and putting up almost 30 at home. And then the other thing Diana, mentioned is Rodgers wants to play in 25 and probably not with the Jets. And kind of coincides with some stuff Zach and Connor have said. And, Hughes had a report earlier in the week that the Jets probably want to go clean split here. Obviously, it's not necessarily what I suggested a week ago. But if Rodgers wants to go elsewhere and they can figure out a way to, like, the Jets to not get totally effed with dead cap money, or, hey, this team could take some of the money and the Jets – that's what it's going to end up being, and it's just a fresh reset. It is what it is. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know if it's the best decision, if it's the wrong, right. It doesn't matter. And frankly, I don't give a crap if Rodgers goes somewhere else and does well, because it's not – obviously, this has been extremely disappointing, and it's just hilarious to look back at Kevin Garnett, my favorite player growing up, him and Vince Carter. But Kevin Garnett comes to the Nets, and it was an abject disaster, and a team that should have been good, even as much as he wasn't the same Kevin Garnett. And now – looking at the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, who's my favorite quarterback in the NFL for the last 15, 16 years, and it's been a disaster. It's just, it's crazy, man. It's your favorite players come to your team. Thank God Zlatan Ibrahimovic didn't ever come to Bayern Munich. I would have been a disaster somehow, because that's just the way things work when it comes to me and rooting for teams. But all that Rodgers stuff aside, obviously the Jets will come out of the bye against Seattle. And I'll get into looking for the next 6 weeks, what to expect. And then also, what's kind of transpired this first 11, 12 weeks of the NFL season for the Jets, and kind of where they go from here. All that stuff will be on the TOJ pod feed. So stay tuned for that. Take a deep breath here, because the other part of what's come out is the Woody Johnson. How much is Woody meddling? Obviously, Woody meddles quite a bit. And then the Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh media apology tour that has taken place across every platform, media, social media, whatever it may be, articles, etc. Again, this has nothing to do with the reporting. It's very good reporting. It's been well done. The Woody Johnson was going to bench Aaron Rodgers after the Broncos game. I think it was hinted at it was more maybe of a suggestion than it was necessarily he needs to be benched. Still, obviously, a very important nugget, and it's kind of crazy. And it's like, what, did he know Rodgers was hurt? Or is he just being impulsive? I have no idea. Obviously, kind of insane for Woody to get involved there. Woody obviously seemingly meddled with the Devontae Adams thing, which I think everyone kind of knew. And I don't feel like that's surprising, because it's rumored that a year ago the Jets offered 2 2s for Devontae and didn't get him, obviously, a year ago, and ended up trading a 3rd-round pick for him when they had multiple. So, like, it is what it is. I don't foresee that really being a problem, that Woody got involved there, that Woody nixed a Jerry Jeudy contract and trade, for Allen Lazard in a 4 back in the wintertime. Again, like, kind of insane he was meddling, but I feel like all owners, especially if you're going to have to give a guy an extension, need to sign off on trades. And giving up a top 100 pick and Alan Lazard for for Jerry Jeudy, who's going to get a massive deal, like low key, did like Woody cook there? I mean, like obviously you'd love to see him not meddle as much, and Jerry Judy's obviously a far better player than Alan Lazard. But like all things considered, they get out of Lazard's contract. You could have had the fourth round pick that ended up being Braylon Allen. Like I don't know, maybe I'd rather have Braylon Allen, and Lazard was actually somewhat decent before he got hurt. Um, the Reddick thing that Woody stepped in and didn't want the Jets to give Reddick this big time extension, but this all stems back to the Jets not cutting bait with Bryce Huff essentially and not extending him, which means he was always going to walk. And some of the stuff that got me fired up this week was Joe Douglas essentially was looking to have someone to blame for not bringing Bryce Huff back and blamed Woody Johnson essentially from kind of all the reporting and that stuff we had heard back in January when it came to the Huff stuff. That wasn't necessarily something new. After the Bills game, Woody was furious. I'm not spending another dollar on this team, the whole 9 yards. And there's a week 12 blowout after, that's when Zach, knocked Sal over on the sidelines, the whole 9 yards. But the reason, and again, should they have brought Bryce back? The Jets were not going to offer Bryce what he got from Philly. I can tell you that for sure. And secondly, they never once approached him with a contract extension when he was a restricted free agent the year prior, the first 9 or 10 weeks of the season when he was very open. I can tell you for a fact, he was very open to signing an extension with the Jets in a scheme he fit perfectly. There's the Jets core last year, that defensive line, I can tell you from speaking to a lot of those guys, loved playing together. They thought they were going to be here for a really long time. Bryce, JFM, Q Jeff, even though he's a veteran, like thought he was going to be here for not just last year, and Jermaine and Will McDonald and Quinnen and all these guys, like they thought they had a legit defense that was going to be the Sack Exchange 2.0. They really felt that way. I'm not making this up. This is not an inference. I'm telling you this for a fact that they felt that way. And it's a real shame that that's what's happened in this defense. And, Clemens getting trotted out there and Woody Johnson benching Tony Adams because that part was objectively kind of hysterical. Like, how did Tony Adams get thrown in there? Like, maybe Woody, if you're listening, bench Michael Clemens, man, please. We're all begging to bench the worst player on the field. There's a lot of different stuff in that article. And Zach did a great